Bianca Belair recently addressed the idea of becoming an undisputed champion, so we'll see what she had to say. We'll also take a look at Alexa Bliss breaking her silence about working with Bray Wyatt, what's going on with Liv Morgan, and much more. Let's start things off with Bianca Belair's comments. Undisputed champions are something that we're starting to see a lot of lately in WWE. Ever since 2016, WWE had 2 sets of titles for each brand. Raw and Smackdown each had their own world champion, women's champion, tag team champions, and so on. But in 2022, they decided to slightly change things up a bit and unify some of those main titles. Roman Reigns was obviously the first one to do it this year by defeating Brock Lesnar and unifying both WWE world titles. After seeing the success he had of unifying both titles, Roman would then go on to push the Usos to be like him and unify the tag team titles. And with some assistance from Roman Reigns himself, the Usos were able to get the job done. So there's now a unified world champion and unified tag team champions. But how about the women's titles? Well, obviously, the 2 women's titles have not been unified yet. But considering all the title unifications that have been going on in recent months, the conversation of unifying the women's titles has been brought up a handful of times by fans recently. Bianca Belair recently spoke with Wrestling Inc. and was asked about the possibility of unifying the 2 women's titles and if it's something that interests her. Bianca had this to say in regards to the idea of becoming an undisputed WWE champion. Quote, "I mean, listen, I have a lot on my resume right now in a very short amount of time, so that's another nothing I can add to the resume. I would like to have 2 golds on both shoulders. I mean, gold is my favorite color, so..." End quote. So it's an interesting idea that has a lot of pros and cons. Obviously, the good or bad thing, depending on how you look at it, would be that there's only one single title for women to go after in the singles division. There's no mid-card title for the women, it's just the tag team titles and the 2 world titles. So by unifying the 2 women's titles, you would be cutting down on the amount of titles and opportunities available for the women's roster. So it would be quite the visual to see someone holding both women's titles, but it just cuts down so many opportunities. We even saw it in the past with Becky Lynch in 2019. She was the undisputed champion for a while there, but WWE quickly reverted to splitting up the titles and having 2 champions again. So it is a tricky situation. The women's titles are better off left alone than unified. But if WWE ever comes close to the end of the brand split, they may have no other choice but to unify the women's titles. But as far as Bianca Belair goes, she would love to become an undisputed WWE Women's Champion. All eyes are on Liv Morgan as she will begin her reign as SmackDown Women's Champion. Like we previously talked about with the big potential challengers like Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair being on SmackDown, it's definitely not going to be a cakewalk for Liv Morgan. She's going to be put to the ultimate test for her very first title defense against whoever it may be. But there's another potential big superstar challenger out there that's letting Liv Morgan know that they have their eyes on her, and that's Bayley. Bayley mostly stays in character on Twitter and lashes out her fans and even other superstars. But right before the women's Money in the Bank match took place, Bayley tweeted that she only was rooting for Liv Morgan to win the contract, and after Liv won the contract, Bayley tweeted out that seeing Liv win was the happiest she's been all year long. Bayley returned to Twitter a few days later by posting a screenshot of a FaceTime call to Liv Morgan not being picked up. Bayley posted the failed FaceTime call to Liv Morgan with a caption that read, quote, "I deserve to be replied to. You're done for." End quote. Of course, Bayley was just messing around with that tweet, but it did have fans wondering about what a Bayley versus Liv Morgan feud would look like. Everyone is thinking that Charlotte or Ronda Rousey will play spoiler in Liv Morgan's first title reign. But what if we end up seeing Bayley return for Liv Morgan instead? Maybe Bayley was genuinely happy to see Liv Morgan become champion. But now that she's cleared, obviously, she'd rather see the title on herself than Liv Morgan. And when talking about Bayley's return, it's always important to point out that she was supposed to have a Smackdown women's title match before she went down with her knee injury. She was booked and ready to go against Bianca Belair for the Smackdown women's title at Money in the Bank 2021, but never got that title match. If Bayley pulls a Brock Lesnar and just automatically returns into the Smackdown women's title picture, it'll be hard to go against that because she did earn that title match in 2021 that she never had the chance to take part in. So in a way, one of the easiest ways to write Bayley back into the show is for her to pick up from where she left off at, of chasing what she believes was her Smackdown women's title. So Liv Morgan is in for quite the heavy few potential challengers here at the start of her title reign. Despite the mixed reactions from the fans in regards to the highly questionable booking of Alexa Bliss and Bray Wyatt, there was no denying that this duo did have a lot of untapped potential. Although the Firefly Funhouse version of Alexa Bliss was often left directionless, without proper feuds, she was still one of the most entertaining characters to watch when she first was joining Bray Wyatt. The whole transition Alexa went through and how she became a right hand to Bray Wyatt was just great to see unfold. Did they have the best storylines together? No, not exactly. The story was all over the place and ended probably in the worst way imaginable. But you can tell that they were just having fun, interacting with each other, and in return, the fans were also having fun watching them together. Alexa Bliss recently appeared on the Out of Character podcast and spoke in great detail about how it was working with Bray Wyatt. Alexa had this to say, quote, "Working with The Fiend, with Winham, Bray Wyatt, was the most fun I've ever had in my entire WWE career. He is so brilliant with his creativity, and he puts so much effort into his character and so much research. It made me want to step my game up 100%, being like, he puts this much thought into his character. I need to put twice as much thought into mine. When you step into someone else's kind of gimmick, you don't want to bring it down. You only want to elevate it. I put so much effort into that and protecting the character and protecting when we did the Firefly Funhouse. And it was so fun. It's very sad that we don't work together anymore because it was so much fun. And I think the WWE Universe saw how much fun we were having." End quote. Everything Alexa Bliss had to say was true. There's no denying Bray Wyatt's creativity, the research, and the work that he puts into every little aspect of his characters. There's a very select few out there right now that operate like Bray Wyatt, extremely rare talent. So Alexa Bliss is saying that being around a hard and creative worker like that made her want to step up her character as well, and that's exactly what she did. The story of the dark Alexa Bliss character never really went anywhere. That's unfortunately true. But there's no denying the work and presentation that Alexa brought to the table with that version of her character. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.